All right, so I know what's going on with the case. October 1st, the Judge Simon kind of, on the technicality purposes, seemed to kick it back in regards to maybe y'all could refile or it wasn't signed. I don't know if it needed a wedding signature. I'm not a lawyer, or this digital signature wasn't right. That's probably more Tim's world. But if you're able to refile, like, what do y'all intend to do next? Like with this, are y'all continuing with the sanctions, or are you going another route, or?
Yeah, I also am not an attorney. Sounds like it was kind of a technicality. Unfortunately, all this time spent, and then we got to kind of refile. But yeah, I think we're absolutely gonna refile it. We believe strongly in, there's actually been some facts come to light from an investigation that Benchmade did into that employee as to what he may or may not have downloaded. Did he send anything to us? And when we initially filed and sent all that stuff, they probably hadn't finished that investigation at that time. Now that they've finished that, they've seen what we've been saying all along, which is there's nothing. He didn't send us. He sent us one document, and it was his non-compete,
Right.
just to show us that he had a non-compete. And we had put in his offer letter that we acknowledged that non-compete and that he had to provide us a letter from Benchmade Legal as to when he could start. So from the very beginning, we were upfront with that. So yeah, if anything, they've now seen that there wasn't any improprieties.
I know Tim sent them 2 emails requesting basically kind of resolve all this without having to go full through with a lawsuit. They ignored them. That's when y'all filed your request for sanctions. But did they give y'all like a copy of the investigation, or like how are you going to get all that in discovery? Like how do what they did, what they investigated? How do y'all get y'all's hands on that?
I haven't asked for that, but all that we were told was what we were told by that employee's attorney,
Got you.
basically about just the gist of how it went. And she just relayed to us that, which I already knew what the results of it were going to be.
Right.
I didn't have any idea what he may or may not have downloaded just in the course of his work throughout his employment there and towards the end or whatever. But I do know what we had initially said when he came for an interview, which was, don't bring anything. We're not going to ask you any of that stuff. We're not interested in anything as far as anything that relates to Benchmade itself. We have our own goals. We make our own knives. Yeah,
So
so
so for lack of a better term, like I feel like there's like a little bit of either resentment or butt hurtness in there. Do y'all have former Benchmade employees that work for y'all now?
we do. We have one that was when I started MKC. It was actually during COVID, and it was one of their designers. He actually left because of all the COVID regulation stuff going on in Portland and at Benchmade. Just in general in society, he was over it, and he
Yeah.
moved to Idaho and went to work for a different company outside the industry. Frankly, at that point, I was only starting this company in my garage. Would never have even been able to hire him at that point. I found out about him a couple years later when we were growing, and it was like, hey, there's this guy that designs knives that's in Idaho. You should give him a call. So that we do have him, and then we did hire a product line manager, kind of a junior product line manager from them. That she's a big hunter and wanted to be out in Montana.
Makes
So those
sense.
are the two employees we have from there.
So do you think, and this would just be opinion based, but do you think for them filing a lawsuit March 15th, self dismissing April 8th, less than a month, do you think that it was just them kind of signal boosting, like, hey, don't do this? Even though y'all didn't poach anyone, but do you think that that was them kind of signal boosting that, or do you think they legit just didn't do an
I, I
investigation?
I think they basically, I get the feeling that they were trying to slow down the freight train that was us.
Yeah.
And I also think they probably underestimated our size and our ability and our willingness to fight back. It generally just felt like, hey, we're big bad Benchmade, and you're the small company in your horse pasture in Montana, and we're just gonna scare you guys. But that's not gonna work. I think they see and can feel the effect that we're making, and they see where we're headed, and they're trying to slow us down.
So I like in last couple of questions, they are still privately owned. They've had their share of things going on. They got fined $13,000 for a chromium spill in a creek, and they destroyed those weapons for the Oregon City Police Department, and they've they've donated to Democratic causes and very little Republicans. I feel like they're always kind of in the bad light. Do you think that they just don't care because they're just such a household name? Like if I were to ask my grandma, knife company, she could probably name Case, Benchmade, and maybe Leatherman. She wouldn't know Victorinox because SAK, but
Right.
you think that they just kind of think that they're just too big to.
It's hard for me to say. I'd be speculating. It does. Maybe feels like maybe they thought they were pretty safe and in their little space and not going to be challenged. But frankly, they left the door open in a lot of ways for a company like ours to come in. But we're not trying to be Benchmade. I mean, that's the thing. I'm very friendly with other knife companies, other knife makers. I grew up in this industry. I knew Les Diasis when I was 13 years old.
Back in the
Would
day
go to the
before
Oregon Knife Show
before
every
he passed
single
away.
year. Yeah, and Benchmade is a great American success story of manufacturing knives. So like, if if they're worried about us, they're not focused on the right goals. And we're not trying to be them. We're trying to do our own thing and be in our own space. But they definitely, it definitely created some bad blood between us. You know, what bothers me more than anything is it's the actual hardship that they put on that employee by not allowing a man to go make a living for his family. You know, that guy's trying to move from Oregon to Montana. He's a bow hunter. He has a young family and wants to get out of Portland and live in Montana. And they could end all this by just letting him go to work at 1 year.
Right. Instead of two.
Oregon's changed their non-compete laws to 1 year. I think that's more than reasonable to just be like, hey, is that one guy really actually gonna sink Benchmade ship? I don't think so. For us to catch Benchmade, it's kind of insane to think about. From what I understand, they have several hundred employees. They're a long-established company. We're still making knives in my home property in my backyard. You're like, yeah, we're building a new facility, and that's going to take us a year. Building facility, step one, then you got to fill it up full of equipment. You got to figure out all the processes. You got to find the customers. So for them to be so protective of their territory that they would harm, a guy, frankly, that made them tens of millions of dollars, and help build out a lot of their programs there at Benchmade, it just shows the kind of people they are, honestly.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So last question: how long till we get a folder?
We're targeting 2026.
Okay.
To be honest, we've grown so much in our small building. There's no way we'd have the capacity to even make those knives in our building. So we're targeting a move-in date of January of 2026 for our new building. And then there's going to be kind of a settling in period there. We're going to be ramping up. And so we're targeting 26 for that.
Okay.
Middle of the year, probably.
All right. Well, I appreciate it again.
Yeah.
You have a
Thank
good
you.
one. Yep.
Thanks
Most
for
definitely.
covering it.